Yeah. Well, so like, for example, like when you're watching, like I used to watch a lot of TV, or I used to listen to a lot of books and podcasts, and I would just rip through them nonstop, like one after another, boom, 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 boom. And then I was like, oh, wait, I listened to that book, or I listened to that podcast, and then I try to think back. I'm like, I can't remember anything of it because I was doing exactly what you were saying. I was just passively listening to everything. And then I was like, I've been going through all these books. I spent all this money, but like, I'm not learning anything. So now what I try to do is if I read a chapter or if I listen to a podcast, I try to write down like, okay, what did I learn, or what was the unique take, or what did a podcast make me think about? What was that conversation or that event? Like, what did I take away from that? Yeah, I'm a big fan of developing some sort of a reflection practice. Some people really like meditating. Some people really like journaling. But developing some sort of practice to kind of pause and reflect on what's been going on. So it's good to kind of look back on the past day, the past week, the past month, and then even like the past year.
Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that have shaped their lives, inviting us to reflect and grow together. Today we're joined by Rob Tracz, a passionate performance coach dedicated to guiding entrepreneurs through the often turbulent waters of ambition and burnout. With a unique blend of physical, mental, and emotional strategies, Rob empowers others to not just to succeed, but to thrive holistically. Let's dive into Rob's journey and discover the wisdom that has inspired him along them. Tell us your name and what your favorite quote is.
Well, my favorite quote? Yeah. Well, my name is Rob Tracz. I'm a coach. I'm a speaker and podcast host as well. I host Surviving the Side Hustle. And, I've got a lot of favorite quotes, but one of my top favorite quotes is, "You're not an expert until somebody invites you into their life as one." And I believe I find that as a very powerful quote, because a lot of times as in the entrepreneurial world, a lot of individuals kind of broadcast their expertise and share to the world that they're an expert at everything. But I think a lot of people forget that nobody will trust you or care to look at you as an expert unless they invite you into their life as one. And that quote is from my friend, my mentor and friend named Brett Bartholomew. He's the author of the book, Conscious Coaching.
Yeah, you're not an expert on someone that invites you into their life. When you say invites, what does that like? What does that mean?
Yeah, so you might know, or you might think that you're an expert, and you might be talking and sharing all this information and spewing all this like facts, and it could be good information, but if the audience or the person you're talking to doesn't invite you in, or if they don't take you in or accept you or want to listen from you, or if they can't connect with you, then whatever your message is that you're trying to share, whatever the expertise is that you have that you're trying to share with other people, isn't going to land with anybody. So whether you could have the best, most powerful information in the world, but if the audience that you're talking to or communicating with isn't open to hearing from you, then your message is never going to land.
Wow. So
it's about connecting.
So expertise isn't necessarily just based on being an encyclopedia of information. It's about people seeing you as someone to take them from point A to B.
Yes. And if somebody doesn't believe that, or they don't see you as a potential expert, then you're never really going to actually be an expert, because if they're not open to hearing what you have to say, then your expertise isn't going to do anything.
Yeah. And the thing about this quote is that a lot of persons, they have people who believe that they are an expert, who have invited them into their life to take them from point A to point B. Yet they still feel like imposters. They still second guess themselves. They still feel like they're not good enough.
Yeah. So true.
I'm looking at the form you feed now, and one other quote you feed in there was, pay attention to what works for you.
Yeah, so that's kind of my message that I kind of share with a lot of people. That is kind of like my personal quote, and it's what I share. It's like the theme for a lot of my coaching, because there is a lot of there's more than one way to be successful, whether it's in business or in personal life. And a lot of people try to copy what they see on social media or what they see in TV and movies and what they read in books. And it's good because that's a good starting spot to kind of base things off of. But until you put your own unique twist on things and you pay attention to what actually works for you, it'll never fully be you or yours. So when you pay attention to what actually works for you and you adopt those things and you adapt your lifestyle to fixing those things, then that's where real success or true success really comes into the picture, because then you're moving more authentically and you're so aligned with you and your unique self, instead of kind of living the facade or living somebody else's life. So once you figure out what helps you, what I usually say is what helps you look good, feel good, and do great things, you just want to kind of lean into that and keep doing those. Because I feel like that's the trifecta in life. If you want to be successful, looking good, feeling good, and doing great stuff.
Yeah, looking good, feeling good, doing great stuff. Looking good,
Yeah,
good, and doing great stuff. Pay attention to what works for you. And what would you say is like you kind of like more like a system or framework that you use to like constantly spend some time to reflect and pay attention to? So, okay, I've been doing this stuff for a while. I've been, podcast guesting. I've been doing this business. I've been working on this fitness journey. What's working, what's not working, and to really know what's actually working for you.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of developing some sort of a reflection practice. Some people really like meditating. Some people really like journaling. But developing some sort of practice to kind of pause and reflect on what's been going on. So it's good to kind of look back on the past day, the past week, the past month, and then even like the past year. Just finding something where what works for you, whether it is meditation where you pause and sit and you kind of think about things in your thoughts, or if you are writing things down. Like for me, I'm a big fan of journaling and typing things out, because that gives me an opportunity to kind of relive the experience in the moments, and it allows me to remember the different people and the emotions and the sensations I was feeling through that day or that experience. And then it also, while I'm typing it out onto my computer, it forces me to slow it down so I can really get myself back into that time period. And then as I'm typing it out, I can read it again. So I'm reinforcing that, whether it's like an event or maybe it was a conference, or maybe I was on a podcast, like a great podcast like this one, and I'm revisiting the conversation and how the host had helped me feel comfortable. The host had great questions, and we just had a great conversation. And I want to continue to have more of those, because then when I go forward, that's going to help and create bigger and better impact for myself and for all the listeners and followers that kind of pay attention to the different stories and things that I share with the world.
Yeah. I think that's what's missing in today's current world, because nobody actually has time to actually spend 15, 20 minutes to just do nothing and just say, okay, I've been doing this for the past 2 years. Why am I even doing it? What's your idea to actually look and say, okay, because it's emphasis on the word pay attention, right? You have to pay attention, like literally pay attention. You have to. It's not like, oh, pay attention. It's not passive.
Yeah.
It's an active process where you have to sit down and say, okay, yeah, I did do this stuff. Is it working? What's not working? And kind of like look at it now. You could do the reflection. You could spend some time just thinking it through and look, but do what works for you. But it has to be an active process, not one of those things where you're like, yeah, I pay attention. No. Pay attention is not passive. It's active.
Yeah. Yes, I love that, because that's how you continue to get better, right? Because when you reflect on it and you ask yourself those questions, like, okay, well, what did go well, or what didn't go so well? Do I need to do more, or what do I need to do more of, and what do I need to do less of? And without that reflection and without that active like attention adding to it, like then you're never going to really get better. I'm sure you've interviewed people on your show where it's like very like tough conversation where they don't really share enough, or it's really slow conversation. And I've been there too. I've interviewed plenty of people where it's just one-sided conversation and they don't really add value to it. So then I know, like, okay, I want to make sure that when I'm speaking with people, I'm providing value, but then I'm also leaving room for the other person to speak as well.
Yeah. And And it's a good thing if you're the one editing your podcast yourself, because it forces you to actually listen and say, oh, I shouldn't have asked that question. The guest was about to share something really interesting. And I just cut him off. And, it's painful, but you have to like listen and say, okay. And every time you edit, every time it's it's not passive, it's active, but it's a system that encourages you to actually listen and get feedback. Because people often say this thing that we learn from experience. But if I ask people, okay, now what was the last experience you had and what do you learn from it? They're like, nothing really. Because they don't actually, they expect learning from experience to be passive. They show up, they do stuff, and they expect to learn. It's not like that. It doesn't work that way. It's supposed to say, I've been doing this stuff. I had this encounter, this opportunity encounter. What can I take from it? And nobody does that.
Yeah. Well, so like for example, like when you're watching, like I used to watch a lot of TV, or I used to listen to a lot of books and podcasts, and I would just rip through them nonstop, like one after another, boom, 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 boom. And then I was like, oh wait, I listened to that book, or I listened to that podcast, and then I try to think back. I'm like, I can't remember anything of it because I was doing exactly what you were saying. I was just passively listening to everything. And then I was like, I'm been going through all these books. I spent all this money, but like, I'm not learning anything. So now what I try to do is if I read a chapter or if I listen to a podcast, I try to write down like, okay, what did I learn? Or what was the unique take? Or what did a podcast make me think about? What was that conversation or that event? Like, what did I take away from that? And then that's that active component that you're talking about.
Yeah. When yeah, just a moment.
Sure.
Just sorry, I'm not using my mic right now. So it's my phone. Okay. I'm so sorry for that. I had to talk to my roommate. Yeah. I noticed one of the other things you talked about. I feel like we've spoken before, but I just cannot remember when. Or is it maybe because we scheduled the meeting so often that your name is just so familiar to me? Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm looking at you, I'm like, I feel like I've spoken to him before, but I'm like, nah, I don't think so. And then you mentioned your mentor, Brett Bartholomew, and the book you mentioned. I don't know if it's you, but I've spoken to someone that also mentioned him as their mentor too, and they mentioned that name. And I'm like, are you sure I've not spoken to him before? Like, no, I don't think so.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't remember either.
If I've spoken to you before, you would know. Yeah, you would know. Like, I mean, okay. You then go on to say that the real success isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters consistently. What's the very would say about doing more and doing what matters?
Well, because doing just doing more doesn't always make progress, right? So like movement doesn't mean progress. So when you pay attention to what is actually moving you forward, or what's being intentional behind it, that's what's going to kind of help level you up and move you to the next stage of wherever you're at currently. There was a time period where I was just working 15, 16, 17-hour days, 7 days a week, and I was just coaching session after coaching session after coaching session, and I was making plenty of money on paper, but I wasn't growing, and I was stuck with my business, and I thought I could just keep grinding. But it wasn't until I had made the shift and changing intentionality behind what I was trying to do. And then I knew my coaching needed to grow and evolve, and I knew that I needed to change, grow, and evolve as well. So when I started shifting my focus into like new things and new skills that I needed to be learning to be able to improve my impact and my reach for people, I knew I needed to learn more than just my regular coaching skills. So whereas one period I was just doing more, but I wasn't actually getting any traction and moving forward. It was just kind of like the wheels are spinning. And then once I made that shift into being more intentional with what really needed to be done, then I started grabbing that traction and pushing the vehicle or my business forward, if that makes sense.
I could also argue that most times you need to do more to realize what matters. And sometimes people like delay the doing more. Like, I'll give an example. You were doing coaching, right? Now, for some persons, they will have to like do it over the span of 6 months or maybe 8 months. For other persons, they'll compress it to 1 month, do a ton of what more might look like. And then quickly they get to realize, okay, this is what matters. And once they do realize that stuff, it's a stage, right? It's a process. Most persons, they are stuck in doing more. They don't actually figure out what they're doing more. It's supposed to help you realize, okay, this is what matters. This is what matters to me. This is what I like. This is what I want to spend time on. This is what I want to discuss, right? It's just like this podcast, right? When I started doing interviews, there was the format, the type I wanted to do, more like I just felt that I should do. And after doing a couple of interviews, I was like, okay, no, this is not what I want to do. This is the way I want to do it. And it took me a ton of iterations to actually realize that, oh, this is what I want. This is what matters to me, right? Because doing what more of what matters. Yeah, that's the word I want to use. Yeah, sometimes you have to do more to realize what matters so that you can do more of what matters. Does it make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yes, it does. I mean, I totally agree with you on that too, because that allows you to go, that multiplies your experiences, right? Because then that's when you decide like, okay, yeah, I do like doing this, or no, I don't like doing that. And then that's how you continue to refine it. But when I'm talking, so also though, like most people just think that like just doing something like busy work. Like I see a lot of individuals who are like, oh, I don't have time to write my book, or I can't go to the gym, or I can't go to those events because I'm busy doing X, Y, and Z. And they think that that is still moving them, getting them better. Whereas where if they really just went to the gym, or if they went to this event here and talked to this other business, that would help them so much more. But if you're someone who is not filling your day and you're just kind of sitting around, like, yeah, like when I first started speaking, I needed to get a lot more reps into it. So I was teaching workshops, I'm speaking on stages, I'm going to conferences, on podcasts and things like that. But I was refining my message and getting better at telling the stories that I need to tell, and honing in the message that I want my audience to take away. And in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was talking about like working out. I would talk about like food and nutrition. And then I'm talking about like leadership and some other stuff here. And now I know when I do talk, it's more so about self-leadership. And now that's all refined in, because I did exactly what you said. I jumped in and I started taking on as many speaking opportunities as possible.
Yeah. Busy work is another thing that's affecting a lot of persons. They're grinding 12 hours, but they're just doing nonsense.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit harsh, but you know, there are, in business or whatever endeavor you're doing, right? There are things that look like work, feel like work, appears like work, but it's not work, right? It doesn't matter. I mean, you could, and then they spend like, 6 hours, 8 hours, I'm working. And then you see someone else who's working 3-4 hours a day and is getting results because they're working on the really essential. And that's why sometimes you have to be in a place of like chaos, kind of, to actually know what really matters, to know what to double down on. Because I think a lot of businesses, a lot of persons are just so comfortable that, you know, they don't really need to work on the essentials.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that one there. Like, you do got to embrace some of that chaos sometimes, because that's how you get a better understanding of yourself. You can kind of understand what you can handle and what you can't really. So like I had a sprint season, I like to call it, and in 4 weeks I had 16 speaking opportunities. I had 120 coaching sessions, and I think I did 42 podcasts in like 4 weeks. So I was like doing a whole lot. And now I was really pushing myself to really take on all those things, but I was really honed in on what really mattered. Have you ever heard of the term yak shaving? So like we were talking about busy work a second ago, and yak shaving is just the term where like, okay, like you go to do one thing and then something else happens, and then you're going to do something else and like something else happens. So like you're like, okay, I'm going to clean my room. So you go into your room, you pick up a couple shirts, you put them around, and then the light goes out. You're like, okay, I got to go change that light bulb so I can continue cleaning my room. So you go into the kitchen, you open the drawer where the light bulb is, and then all of a sudden the handle breaks off, and you're like, oh, I got to fix this thing. So then I'm going to find a screwdriver in the garage. I go outside, I grab a screwdriver, and while I'm out there, I notice that the paint can is spilled over. So I'm like, oh, I got to clean this paint up, and then I'm picking the paint up, and then 6 hours later, I've done all this other stuff, but I didn't actually clean my room because I was so busy doing all these other things. And yak shaving is you just go from one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing, and you just actively being busy, but nothing actually gets done. So like my room didn't get cleaned, the light bulb didn't get changed, the drawer handle didn't get fixed, but now I'm in the garage doing something with the paint. So like nothing actually got done, but I did all that like small busy work. And a lot of entrepreneurs and even just regular people, they get stuck in that yak shaving kind of thing where they do one thing and then they move on to the next thing and the other thing without finishing anything.
Yeah, yeah. And at some point in time, right, it takes a level of, okay, um, overwhelm, right? First, the thing about overwhelm, it's dangerous, but for most people, it crushes them. For others, it gives them clarity. Where you're like, okay, what matters? It's just like if you are if the house is on fire right now, and immediately, you without thinking twice, like your brain is going to tell you the things you need to pick and get out of that room immediately. If you are living with someone, like the priority of things to save out of that room before anything, you just know quickly. But then it quickly shows you your focus. But in normal day, like, oh yeah, this stuff is important to me. This stuff is important to me. But then in times of like that, you then realize that I mean I could get another one from the supermarket. That's not really a big deal. And then you know what to like save and what to like let the fire rumble up, and you move on.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that picture of the dog inside the house and he's like, the house is burning. He's just like, everything is fine. No, I guess not.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for pay attention to what works. And I mean, it's one of those things that we need to be reminded that take a break, just pause and look around and ask yourself what's working. Because most persons, they believe that you have to keep working, Yeah, working is important. It's nice, but if you're working on the wrong thing, at the end of the day you explain, no results, no evidence, because you're doing the busy work, even though you're working 12 hours, 16 hours a day, not to show for it. Someone who's doing 3 hours a day, they would be getting results, and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm cursed.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Rob. What would you want people to take away from this episode? Kind of like the last summary of what you said so far.
I think you nailed it right there perfectly. Is just again paying attention to what works for you, and you figuring that out by pausing. Like it's okay to take a breather. It's okay to pause and reflect and take a little bit of time to decide whether or not like what you're doing is moving you forward, and is it moving you forward in the right direction too. And if you're not really too sure, then spending a little bit more time to understand yourself as an individual. Like, what are your values? What are your goals? Where are you trying to get to? What are your strengths and your weaknesses? And is the things that you're doing, is the life that you're creating, is that moving you towards the life that you want to be living? Because I think a lot of times people often forget that we have the ability to create our lives, and you figure that kind of stuff out by pausing, reflecting, and paying attention to what really works for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. The people who have been listening to the episode, they want to learn more and connect with you. Where can they do that?
Yeah, the easiest place to touch base with me is social media. I hang out on Instagram and LinkedIn the most. It's easy just to find me just by searching my name, Rob Tracz, and robtrazy.com. And also, best place to check out is survivingthesidehustle.com. That's where my podcast is located.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Of course. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to finally make this happen. Thanks for listening to Relatable Wisdom. If you found something meaningful in this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Every little bit keeps the conversations going. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep growing.